This video is sponsored by Squarespace.
Hey there, welcome back to Black Magic Craft. So in the last video, I showed you this copy of the Dark World board game from 1991 that I found on Marketplace. And as I mentioned, it was the miniature game of my childhood. I was disappointed but not surprised to find that a lot of the pieces were missing or damaged. This has sent me on a side quest to gather together a complete and in reasonably good condition set of this game. I've had a couple people, friends and viewers, reach out saying they had various parts or games in various states of completion or condition, and they're going to send me some of those. I haven't got any yet, so I still don't know where I'm going to land on that in the end. But one day I will have a full complete set of Dark World. Some of the minis in the one that I got had been painted and painted with Tester's enamel paint. So I was thinking, while I am going to try to assemble a complete set of unpainted, good condition miniatures from this game, why not also make use of some of the painted ones and repaint them? This would be really fun because it would make use of those models and also let me kind of like paint in a more vintage style, which isn't something I've ever really done before. I decided to start with the two models that had the worst paint jobs. And by worst, I just mean that they were covered in the most enamel paint. No shade to the little kid who 20 years ago painted these things. And that was the two big bads from the game, the Manticore and Korak, the like snake wizard guy. My first attempt at stripping was using some 99% isopropyl alcohol. And it's recommended when you're trying to do this that you use an ultrasonic cleaner. I don't have an ultrasonic cleaner, but I do have a couple resin wash stations, which are just big vats of isopropyl alcohol and a spinning blade to kind of mix it up a bit. Now I understand this isn't the same, doesn't do the same thing as an ultrasonic cleaner, but I figured why not just throw them in there and try, see what happens. And not much happened. So instead I just threw them in a cup with some more alcohol and pulled them out every hour or so and scrubbed them with a toothbrush. And after several hours, I had made very little progress. Now the thing is, I wasn't too worried about this. You know, the reason I was doing this in the first place with these models was that if I couldn't strip them nicely, I'll just paint over them. I'll just reprime them with something and it is what it is. But I did eventually give up on the alcohol and switch to an industrial strength degreaser. This was a big bottle that I got for pretty cheap at Home Depot. The brand is Zepp. It's very concentrated. And after leaving the minis in this stuff for like an hour, I could finally start to see the paint really giving way. And with a paintbrush, it really started to come off. In the end, I put it in for another half an hour, then pulled them out. And with a toothbrush was able to get off like 99.9999% of the paint. I was really surprised with just how well this worked. It put me in a position where I could just keep these for my master set of unpainted models. But I already had it in my head that I was going to be painting these models on this day. So I said, whatever, like, it's great. I just got a better start for painting. These models work with slotted bases, which means they have that tab on the bottom of their feet, which makes it kind of difficult to mount onto a painting handle. So the smartest thing I could come up with was attaching them to some, throwaway old slotted bases that I could then stick to the handles more easily to take them over to the spray booth to prime them with some polyurethane primer. I did a zenithal highlight with white ink to kind of see what kind of details I was working with on these models, and to be honest, it wasn't very much. But in this process, I encountered a kind of hilarious problem that I should have seen coming. The Manticore is a two-piece model that is hollow. All that degreasing solution filled up the model and was now working its way out of the seams, which obviously was bad news. That's just gonna take the paint off. You can't paint a model that is seeping out paint stripper. I tried using my airbrush to blow it as much as possible, but there's like, it was just kind of doomed. I tried to split apart the model, but I didn't think I would be able to do this without breaking something. The kid who put these together, decades ago, used a decent amount of glue, and it was well stuck together. So I did something crazy. I drilled a big old butthole in the bottom of this thing so that all this grease could seep out. Yep. Big greasy, well, I guess not greasy, because the cleaner is a degreaser. I'm gonna let this manticore's butthole drip out all its degreaser and hope for the best. In the meantime, I could move on to Korak, the snake wizard, get painting that one. Hey there, nice to meet you. My website's www.blackmagiccraft.ca. What's yours? What do you mean you don't have a website? Everybody's got a website these days. It's cool and it's easy. All you gotta do is go to www.squarespace.com/blackmagiccraft and sign up for a free trial. Squarespace is an awesome all-in-one website domain hosting platform. They've got wicked tools to make it easy for people like me and you to make radical websites. Don't know what you're doing? Don't worry about it. They've got tons of templates to make it real easy. You can quickly make galleries, create a store, and do whatever you want to do on the World Wide Web. And when you're ready to launch that crazy cool website, use the link in my description and the code BlackMagicCraft to get 10% off your first website or domain. Nice! Squarespace, it's the coolest. I used some speed paints to block in some colors and very quickly realized that this was going to give me a type of aesthetic look that I wasn't after for these models. I wanted these to look like 90s toys. I wanted them to match the aesthetic of the board game and be as true to the box art as possible. So I switched gears and just used some basic acrylic paints with some pretty bold colors. And this gave me a much better starting point for getting the look I wanted. I also decided not to use metallic paints, which is really weird for me. I am not interested in non-metallic metals at all. I don't know that I'll ever take the time to learn how to do them properly. I like metallic paints, but I just had this weird sort of fantasy thought in my head as I was painting that I was back in the early 90s doing this. I probably wouldn't have had a ton of paints, maybe not metallic paints. I probably would have had a very basic set of colors. And I kind of wanted to paint it that way, as if I had done it in the 90s as a kid, but with whatever talent I happen to have now. So anyways, I didn't use metallics. This was a really interesting experience for me because I have, at this point, managed to find my way as a miniature painter, primarily by leaning on techniques that lean on the details of models. Washes, like oil washes, dry brushing, zenithal prime, speed paints. All of these techniques use all the hyper detail on modern models to look really good with not so much effort. But these old models, they have such soft, chonky details. It's like they're sculpted out of bubble gum. So you can't do that on them. And I just had to kind of just paint it. And I don't know, I really had a good time doing this. It was nostalgic, even though I didn't spend a lot of time as a kid painting miniatures. I did spend a fair bit of time painting monster models and stuff though, like Revel ones. And this took me back to that, and that was great. Eventually, the manticore's butthole had dried out, and I was able to reprime it and start painting it. This time I did use an airbrush, mostly because this model is one big soft form and didn't have a lot of variation in color. So the airbrush was one quick, but also it let me do some easy shadows and highlights on a sculpt that was really smooth, where I wouldn't have a lot of guiding, high sharp details to do brushwork highlights on. I did a bit of brushwork on it, but painting the arms and the body, there's not much to go on. And this model was harder to paint than the first one because there was so much less detail. Not just less detail, but fewer different items to differentiate colors on. He's just a big orangey brown lion thing, which meant it was pretty easy for it to end up not looking that much different than the unprimed red plastic model, which, you know, like of course that I don't want. But with a bit of time and patience, I managed to get just enough definition worked into it for it to look like it was painted. And that was good. I was happy with that. I had this goal of painting these in a certain style to match the vintage box art. I did it. I was happy. So at that point, I could take them off the temporary bases and put them onto the real ones from the game. I realized that both of these models, like as pictured on the box art, have one of those little bits attached to the base. Korak has a skull, so that's easy, but I couldn't figure out what the hell was on the Manticore. Like on the box art and in the instructions, it just looked like a blob. I couldn't tell what it was. Thankfully, with a Google image search, I was able to find a picture that was labeled with what was on the base, and it happened to be a pair of the magic boots, and I did have a couple of those in my set, so that was good. In order to hold them while painting them, I just used the bases so I could stick them in, but I didn't want to paint the bases. I wanted the bases to stay black plastic, so I masked them off. And yeah, I just primed them, did a simple color paint job on them. And with the models and the little bits on the bases, I was basically done, except there was one last small problem to solve. And that's because these were slotted bases, there was that little tab of red plastic in between their feet that you could see on the bases. And you would normally just like cover this up with some sort of ground texture or cover or whatever, but I didn't want to do that. I really wanted these to just have the black plastic bases. So I just painted that strip and the top of the bases a matte black to match the plastic. And in the end, they don't look painted. And I am so happy with these. This was a, like, not a difficult task, but it was like a different task. And it was just refreshing to do. And I'm probably like pretty soon in my spare time gonna start hitting some of the other models. I couldn't do them in time to add them to this video, but like I'm excited to paint the orcs from this game because they're just like so fun. Hope you like this video. Like it, subscribe, all that stuff. I got like a couple cool new t-shirts on my website. There's also my essential equipment page where I list the stuff I use regularly, and shopping through those affiliate links helps fund the production of these videos. If you like the channel and what I do, consider supporting it on Patreon. That'd be really good. And I'll use some of that money to source out more parts for this game. Money well spent, right? Okay, cheers. See you next time.